Hi, I am glad to share our work, Efficient Map Sparsification based on 2D and 3D discretized grids. We come from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Our work aims to reduce map size for efficient localization in large-scale environments. To improve efficiency, we formulate map sparsification in an efficient linear form, and select uniformly distributed landmarks based on 2D discretized grids and images. Furthermore, to reduce the influence of different spatial distributions between the mapping and query sequences, we also introduce a space constraint term based on 3D discretized grids. We add these to novel terms in previous K-cover-based methods, and it can be solved efficiently using mixed integer programming. We have released our codes on the GitHub, please check for more details. To realize a robot automatic navigation, we could firstly build a map of its working environments, and then perform relocalization based on feature matching when the robot is working. Both visual mapping and relocalization have been studied a lot, and some excellent works have achieved good results in small-scale environments. When applied in large-scale environments or in long-term, however, much more memory is being consumed and localization also becomes inefficient. Actually, not all landmarks are necessary for robots to localize in pre-built maps. In this map, there are more than 141,000 landmarks. We can select only 5,000 landmarks from them, and more than 96% of query images can still be localized successfully. Therefore, this work is to find a subset of an original map while maintaining comparable localization performance. Map sparsification is commonly related to a K-cover problem and is solved using mixed integer programming. Here, using a binary vector to indicate whether a landmark is selected. The target is to minimize the number of landmarks. The constraint is to keep at least k visible landmarks for each image. This formulation only considers the number of landmarks, but their distribution is also important. To involve the distribution of landmarks, quadratic terms are commonly used. This quadratic matrix describes the relation between each pair of landmarks. But this term makes computation very slow and consumes lots of memory. In this work, we formulate landmark distribution in a linear form based on image grids. Each image is discretized into fixed-size grids, which have two states, empty and occupied. A cell is occupied if at least one landmark is projected into it, otherwise, it is empty. Therefore, to acquire uniformly distributed landmarks, we encourage selecting the landmarks that make more cells occupied. This can be formulated in a linear form easily. Here is still to ensure enough landmarks for each frame. B is a binary matrix describing the association between the landmarks and all cells. It is to encourage more image cells are occupied. In previous methods, map sparsification is formulated based on association between landmarks and keyframes, and assume the spatial distribution of query sequence will be close to that of mapping sequence. Obviously, this assumption cannot be promised in real robotic applications. Therefore, we also consider landmark visibility in 3D space. We assume a feature point can be matched when the viewing angle and distance are within certain thresholds. The visible region for a landmark forms a truncated spherical cone. We add landmark visibility in map sparsification by discretizing the whole space into a 3D grid. For each 3D cell, we collect all visible landmarks and introduce an external constraint to enforce enough visible landmarks are kept. All of these three constraints are in linear form, and thus it can be solved efficiently. Besides, all information to construct matrix A, B and C is already recorded in original maps. In experiments, we first construct original maps using Visual SLAM, and perform map sparsification using different methods. Query images are then localized in compact maps. Different map sparsification methods are compared in terms of localization rate and run time. Here we use three commonly used SLAM datasets, covering indoor and outdoor, small-scale and large-scale environments. The number of landmarks in original maps changes from thousands to more than 100,000. We first test the proposed constraints based on 2D grids. The query sequence is the same with the mapping one. The experimental results demonstrate that the number of landmarks can be reduced largely while the localization is still successful for most query images. Adding constraints of landmark distribution commonly gets better results. Compared with quadratic programming methods, our method also gets a little better results. Another superiority of our method is computational efficiency. Although quadratic programming also gets good result, it is very slow and consumes lots of memory. On our device, it cannot deal with the origin map that consists of more than 60,000 landmarks. Formulating in a linear form, our method is much more efficient. We also test localization performance with different query sequences. We can see localization rates may decrease largely for query sequences that are different from mapping ones. By adding extra constraints for the whole space based on 3D grid, the proposed method gets better results. Here we draw all valid 3D cells that contain enough visible landmarks of two different compact maps. It is clear much more valid that these cells are kept when adding space constraints. In summary, we propose two novel terms for efficient map sparsification. If the mapping sequence has covered most of the query space for localization, the proposed map sparsification based on 2D discretized grids can be used to decrease the number of landmarks to save memory and improve localization efficiency. If the mapping sequence has not covered the whole query space and query images may be taken with different viewing perspectives, the map sparsification involving the constraints from the 3D discretized grid is a better choice to select landmarks. Thanks for watching.